Chiefs Kingdom, welcome into a brand new episode of the Chiefs Report by Chat Sports. Today we're in the conference room because, brother, you and I need to talk. And what we need to talk about is Eric Bieniemy, who is obviously officially the offensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs. That's not news at this point, but Andy Reid did discuss his excitement level about the hire of Eric Bieniemy, and it got this little brain of mine ticking about some potential free agent targets that EB might want to go out and get at the position that he played, at the position that he's coached for most of his career as a positional coach when he hasn't been an OC, the running back position. 4 guys today that we could go out and get in free agency. I know the draft has been a major focus for the running back spot as well. Today we're going to talk about free agency targets. So 4 targets after we get through some discussion of what Andy Reid had to say about Eric Bieniemy. Let's kick it off with that, but first, if you are not already subscribed to the Chiefs Report by Chat Sports, we have all the Chiefs news and rumors you need this offseason all year long. We're going to be covering the draft. We've already put out 2 different draft targets videos for the 9th overall pick, one for offensive guys, which does include Jeremiah Love, who will be a topic in today's video, and one for some defensive guys, which includes Ruben Bain, who went off in the national championship despite a loss. So some really interesting content around the offseason already, including a perfect offseason plan. Ton of stuff to watch after you get through this video, and we'll be here all offseason covering your Kansas City Chiefs. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. But first, let's talk about what Andy Reid had to say about Bieniemy. And this, overall, the theme of the conference that he had with the media today, the Kansas City media, was excitement. Excitement about EB returning to Kansas City, and a lot of complimentary speak towards Matt Nagy, which I'll be brief on this because, trust me, I know you guys don't really want to hear it, but Matt Nagy, of course, is somebody that Andy Reid is very fond of. It's a weird situation this year, the way they speak about Matt Nagy, but obviously not being interested in retaining him as an offensive coordinator, but Reid quite insistent in his press conference today that Nagy is a head coach at the NFL level, that he deserves that kind of an opportunity, although it certainly does not seem that that is really coming for him. It seemed like the Titans were maybe the best chance he had to get that opportunity this offseason in this coaching cycle. They obviously go in a different direction, with Robert Saleh ending up being that head coaching, or landing that head coaching job, So Matt Nagy's kind of in limbo, if you will, right now, but Andy Reid doing what he can to lobby for his former guy. But then he got into the topic of his new guy, Eric Bieniemy, and what might change now that EB's on the staff as OC as far as play calling goes. This is what he had to say that stuck out to me. He said, "I still enjoy calling plays, but what I do is I'm not afraid to delegate and get opinions from people. And then even in certain situations, letting them go ahead and call things in different areas. So we do this jointly. I keep it open, and I felt that that's the best way. I want guys that contribute. I want them to work hard, be expert in their area. I've always mixed and matched there, and it seemed to have been fairly productive." So interesting, because the start of that does kind of seem to suggest that Eric Bieniemy might have a role to play in Chiefs play calling this offseason. Which, if that's the case, I'm interested in hearing that, because obviously he wasn't a play caller originally the first time around in Kansas City. He did not have a play calling role. The play calling role didn't go great for him in Washington or at UCLA, but I'm interested in new ideas for Andy Reid broadly at this point. I think this offense does need new thoughts and new challenges. And if Eric Bieniemy can present those, even if it's in the context of, hey, this worked really well a couple of years ago when we did it, and we can get back to doing that, then maybe that's something that this offense needs as well. But then you get to the end of that quote where he says, "I've always mixed and matched there, and it seemed to have been fairly productive." And you get back to the idea of, okay, is anything going to change at all? And at this point, I don't 100% know, to be honest with you guys. It's going to be something that we have to watch for. But if I know Andy Reid and if I know the Kansas City Chiefs, I would suggest probably not a major change coming here, to be completely honest with you. But overall, a lot of excitement about Eric Bieniemy being back in Kansas City. clearly, within the Chiefs building. And does that excitement translate into giving him his guy, so to speak, at the running back position? I think that's possible for the Kansas City Chiefs in free agency. I think it's something that they clearly have given consideration to over the last couple months. I mean, we heard in the recent interview, there was Bob Fesco on 95.9 The Fan, it took me a second to come up with that one, exactly who had that interview, but what the Chiefs' plans were for free agency. And it includes going out and signing a running back, attacking the running back position, and ensuring that you can upgrade in that spot big time. And I think that might be something Kansas City wants to do. And especially since you've now hired Eric Bieniemy, I've collected my thoughts there. Because when you go out and get a guy like Bieniemy, who's seen a ton of success with the running back position in his career, it definitely signals that you might want to increase your investment in the spot. So 4 guys that Kansas City could target. Starting with number 1, and this is somebody that I have brought up a lot on this show, so it's not going to be a major surprise to anybody listening that Breece Hall makes my list of 4 guys that you would definitely need to consider that are pending free agents this offseason. The current Jets running back has been fantastic with New York on a bad Jets team. And not just a bad Jets team, on a lot of different bad Jets teams, on 4 different bad Jets teams. They were all bad. And he still found a way in all 4 of those seasons to be, to varying degrees, but increasingly productive. All 4 years, Breece Hall's productive. You look at the totality of the 4 seasons, over 4,000 total yards of offense, 3,300 plus, almost 3,400 as a rusher, and over 1,600 as a receiver. He's an incredibly versatile player. He would be a huge boon to this offense, in my opinion, and you would finally be able to pair Patrick Mahomes with a truly elite running back. That is what Breece Hall is. At the end of the day, he is a truly elite back. And that is not something that Mahomes has ever been able to say he's had in his entire career. As great as his career has been, I don't think you could ever say Patrick Mahomes has been paired with a truly elite running back. But he would be if you got Breece Hall, a guy who has receiving upside, a guy who adds an element of explosive play to your offense. The Chiefs running backs ranked last in the NFL in terms of explosive runs last season. They absolutely would not if you added in Breece Hall. And when I think about things that are explosive, guys, I think about the big game. And the big game is almost here. And there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, that also means it's your last chance to get in on the football action before next season. So close the season outright with Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. With the new social feeds feature, you can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. Copy lineups you like or use them as inspiration for your own picks. You can even follow Prize Picks partners like us and tailor fade our picks with just one click. I'm getting my Prize Picks app out right now. And honestly, guys, I use this literally every day. I actually just hit on a lineup last night, a big win for me on the conference championship games that happened. So I'm a huge fan of Prize Picks, and I definitely recommend that you download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Let's get back into free agency targets for the Kansas City Chiefs. Number 2, Kenneth Walker, or Ken Walker, variously called. I think it was Ken in college, and now he's Kenneth in the NFL. K9 even, as some call him. Can the Seahawks afford to keep him at the end of the day? That's going to be one of the questions they have to address this offseason is, can we afford to keep Kenneth Walker? I think the answer is yes to can they afford to keep him. Do they ultimately decide to keep him is a different decision at the end of the day, because they do have some cap flexibility, but they may decide, hey, let's invest that into our offensive line. Hey, let's invest that into our defense. Hey, let's save some of that for Jackson Smith-Njigba's contract coming down the line. That's going to be enormous. So decisions for Seattle over the next couple of months, and one of those will be Kenneth Walker. Do you bring him back? That could be a $12 to $14 million contract that you're tied into for the next 3 to 4 seasons. Might be a little bit more than you want as far as cap flexibility goes. If he does get out of Seattle, and again, I would say it might be a 20% chance that he slips out of Seattle, but if he's on the market, whereas Breece Hall, I think there's a 100% chance Hall is on the market. Let me go back and say that because I didn't clarify it. I don't think there's any chance Hall goes back to New York because he doesn't want to be there. He's been very clear about that. Kenneth Walker, I don't think there's really any reason why he'd explicitly want to leave Seattle. It would more be a situation where Seattle just decides at the end of the day, this isn't a priority. We can replace you in the draft. X, Y, or Z, whatever it ends up being. If Walker does get out, he's not even 26 years old yet. We've seen really productive play from him this season, especially in the playoffs. He had a really great game, against the Rams in the NFC Conference Championship, which was last night when I'm filming this on Monday, January 26th. Would be an interesting target for the Chiefs. Not quite as versatile as far as, it's not that he's not a receiving option. I don't think he offers you the same level of upside in that element as Breece Hall or two of the other guys that we'll talk about in the later section of today's video. But Walker would be a very nice addition. Again, I think the biggest thing with Ken Walker, is he available for you? I honestly, at the end of the day, I don't know that he's going to be. He is technically a pending free agent. It's something we'll watch for. It's something to keep in the back of your mind. Do the Seahawks decide to retain number 9? We will see over the next couple months, because if they don't, that would be an elite pickup for us. I think both of these guys are elite backs. Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall, they haven't given elite production yet, but I think part of that is because at least Kenneth Walker's been splitting a lot of his carries with Zach Charbonnet, and then Breece Hall has been held back by just being on a really bad Jets team. But I think both of those guys could be elite level productive in Kansas City. Now, it comes to a question with these two guys, more so than the two that we'll talk about next. Maybe one of them would kind of be a similar situation, but I want to bring this point up now. Is drafting the way to go here, or is signing a free agent the way to go to address the running back position? I think it's an interesting conversation to have at the end of the day. I personally can kind of see both ends of it. I think signing a free agent gives you guarantees in some ways, at least more so than the draft. You know who this guy is at the NFL level. You know this guy's productive at the NFL level. You know this guy's successful at the NFL level. So you're paying for a bit more of a proven commodity. Whereas in the draft, you're going to save a little bit of money as far as contract goes. Not a ton with running backs. Sometimes the rookie running backs come in as the highest paid running back in the NFL. I think Ashton Jennings was like 4th on the overall average per year. So you don't save a ton when you draft a running back in the top 10, if we're thinking about Jeremiah Love here. But you would have that guy locked down under contract for the next 4 seasons on a contract that is going to increasingly kind of scale itself down as other guys raise their rates. And you would also be able to address it with a young piece. There's decisions to be made here at the end of the day, and I want to hear from you guys. Are you more in favor of drafting a running back at the 9th overall pick or of signing one in free agency? And it doesn't necessarily have to be one of the guys we've talked about so far today or one of the 2 guys we'll talk about later in today's video. I just want to know in general, where are you on that discussion? Are you draft or are you free agency for addressing the running back position? Because I think almost every Chiefs fan is kind of ubiquitous on we need to address running back in free agency this offseason. But do you want to do it via the draft or do you want to do it via free agency? Let me know in the comments below. Number 3. Third target for us, Travis Etienne. This is another one where it's going to come down to, is he going to get out of Jacksonville? And I think maybe on initial first blush, you might go, no, absolutely not. Etienne's a good player. Of course the Jags will keep him. But then you kind of look at the Jags cap space, which I don't spend a ton of my free time staring at the Jags cap space, but I did today, and they have negative $10 million for 2026. If you weren't aware of that, you are now. Now, doesn't it feel a bit more likely that Etienne gets out, that there's a path by which James Gladstone, Jags GM, is sitting there at the end of the day and he's evaluating the guys he's got to bring back, and he's like, ooh, Etienne, $9 to $11 million to a 27-year-old running back. Is that a decision I want to make right now? Probably not. We got a lot of money to pay to Trevor Lawrence. We'll see you, buddy. I think that could happen pretty easily, especially when you weigh in the decision they made in the draft last year, to pick up one of my favorite rookies in last year's class, somebody I was very high on in the draft, Virginia Tech's Breece Hall. And Breece Hall has actually become a really big part of that offense. He's not ultra productive just yet, but you definitely see him coming on. And I know that coaching staff knows it as well. I know they see that. And so it could become a decision at the end of the day where you're like, look, we've got this guy in Breece Hall, who maybe isn't ready to be our 3-down back, but could definitely be paired with a rookie, and they could get the job done, and we could save a lot of money and move forward without Travis Etienne, move forward into the Trevor Lawrence gets all the cash future that the Jags are heading towards. Would he then be an interesting option for Kansas City? And in some ways, yes. You know, he checks some boxes here in terms of like what we want to add as far as I think he's a poor man's Breece Hall to a degree. I don't think he's as elitely explosive as Breece Hall is, but he's a fantastic athlete. He offers you that kind of receiving versatility, 1,300 career receiving yards in his first 4 seasons in the NFL. I still think he'd be the best running back Patrick Mahomes had ever played with in his career. Be a massive upgrade over a guy like Isaiah Pacheco, massive upgrade over a guy like Brashard Smith, as much as I love Brashard. But does it make sense? As much as maybe it doesn't make sense for the Jags to spend 9 to 11 to 10 million, whatever it ends up being, on a 27-year-old running back with a lot of wear on the tires, if you go all the way back to Clemson, does it make sense for us to do that either? I don't know. It definitely wouldn't be my number one. That's why he's third on the list, obviously. But I would rather see the Kansas City Chiefs do a lot of other things before you sign Travis Etienne. I think there's a lot of concerns there with him. Injury-related for sure, but also he's the oldest option of the 4 guys that we're going to talk about. I honestly maybe should have had him 4th because I think I like option 4 better than I like option 3. And speaking of which, let's just jump into option 4 right now. Javonte Williams. Williams goes down to Dallas this season after a not bad, but injury-plagued season in Denver. If you play a lot of fantasy football, you probably remember this name because he was a big talking point in the 2023 offseason about how good this guy was going to be in Denver's offense, and I really think things were set up for it to be that way for him. And you could kind of see that this year in Dallas, but he tears his ACL, doesn't come to fruition. He ends up missing most of that season and then kind of bouncing back on a $2.5 million contract with the Cowboys. I don't even know if it was $2.5 million. I think it might have been less than $2 million annual that he got. But he was productive. 252 carries, 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns. Very Rico Dowdle-esque, who obviously had a similar plus 1,000-yard season, but in a very quiet way with the Dallas Cowboys in 2024. But again, you think about with Williams, he's got injury concerns. Obviously, we just talked about his torn ACL. Is that going to pop its ugly head up again for him in his career? Obviously, personally, I hope not. But you'd hate to commit maybe $5 million annually to this guy and then have him do it again. That would be absolutely brutal. He's also a bit older than the other options here, other than Travis Etienne, who is the oldest option on our list at 27 years old, almost 28. Javonte is almost 26, so he's a little bit younger. Etienne is 26, almost 27. Javonte is 25, almost 26. There we go. Now we're good. I think he'd come affordable. like I mentioned, I'm kind of comping him to Rico Dowdle, who had a similarly productive single season in Dallas, got a less than $3 million deal in Carolina. Williams a little bit more productive, honestly substantially more productive if you really consider the added touchdowns as well. I think he's probably trending towards a $5 to maybe $7 million contract in free agency for 1 to 2 years of his services. And I think what's really interesting about Williams and why I wish I would have moved him up to third, I think more so than any other option on this list, Williams does not preclude you from drafting a Jeremiah Love. I don't think the Chiefs are so cap-strapped, and we've talked about in our perfect offseason video all the ways in which we can create cap space this offseason. I don't think you're so cap-strapped that doing both of those things wouldn't be a viable option. I think it absolutely could be. You could get Williams on again, whether it's $5 to $7 million deal. Does he come over knowing there'll be an opportunity to play with Mahomes and be competitive this season with Mahomes back to fully healthy? Obviously, all things go to plan. Does he come over on a little bit more of a discount? It's definitely possible. I think you could invest in both of those guys, do a 1 to 2 year with Williams, and then let Love take over as your full-time guy. In some ways, Williams, I kind of like that plan best. I want to hear from you guys, though. Of the 4 that we've talked about, as we wrap up this video, which of those 4 guys do you like the most? If you like Javonte Williams, give me a JW in the comments. If you like Travis Etienne, give me a TE in the comments. If you like Kenneth Walker, give me a KW. And if you like Breece Hall, give me a BH. So 4 options, BH, KW, TE, or JW. There you go. There are your 4 options for this video. And as we wrap this thing up, I want to thank you guys for spending your time with us here on the Chiefs Report by Chat Sports, and I will see you in the next one.